Welcome to this Masterclass Explainer. Look, if you're out there on the front lines of ministry, you already know exactly what we're up against today. We're constantly tasked with intellectually and really pastorally defending human dignity against this crushing weight of secular materialism. So today, we are unpacking a briefing that equips you to do exactly that. We're going to dive deep into the mathematical limits of biological evolution, the historical reality of the Imago Dei, and then most importantly, how you can effectively communicate all of this in your local church.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. 1, the street. 2, the academy. And 3, the pulpit. Simple as that. Let's dive in. Section 1, the street. The chimp myth. Let's start right out there on the cultural front lines with an objection that I know your lay leaders are hearing every single day. We have all heard the skeptic's script, right? It goes something like this. Science has proven we aren't special. We share 98% of our DNA with chimpanzees. We're really just slightly smarter primates who happen to have better tools. This is a deliberate attempt to reduce humanity to mere animals. It frames the Imago Dei, the image of God, as basically a comforting myth born out of human pride. The core argument they're making here is that our differences from animals are purely a matter of degree, not a difference of kind. But man, when you actually step back, there is a stark contrast between this genetic illusion and the massive behavioral gap. I mean, think about it. If the difference between us and chimpanzees is only a matter of degree, why on earth is there no animal equivalent of human culture? Chimps aren't out there writing symphonies, they don't build particle accelerators, they don't construct intricate legal systems, and they certainly don't sit around pondering moral philosophy or their existential purpose. Human language has recursive syntax. We have this incredible symbolic capacity. We literally inhabit an entirely different reality. Which brings us to Section 2, the Academy defining biological limits. We need to elevate this conversation to the MDiv level now and really examine the strict boundaries of Darwinian mechanisms. To do this well, we absolutely have to map out a crucial biological boundary. First, you have microevolution. This involves minor variations and adaptations within a single created kind or gene pool. Think about the varying beak sizes of Darwin's finches. This is an observable, empirical fact. Nobody is debating this. But macroevolution, that is an entirely different beast. This is the theoretical, large-scale transition across kinds to create completely new life forms. And the reality is, it remains mechanistically unproven at the macro level, and it is historically contested by the glaring lack of transitional forms in the fossil record. Here is the crucial point for your apologetics toolkit, understanding exactly why macroevolution hits a brick wall. The primary mechanism proposed is natural selection acting on random genetic mutations. Sounds plausible, right? But here's the catch. Natural selection cannot select for a trait until the complex genetic information to build that trait already exists. Macroevolution requires massive infusions of absolutely novel, functional genetic information to build new organ structures and body plans. It's literally like trying to randomly mutate existing software code and hoping it accidentally builds a completely new, functioning operating system. It doesn't work that way. Microbiologist Douglas Axe actually calculated the probability of this happening. He looked at the chances of an unguided random mutation finding just one novel functional protein fold over the entire 3.8 billion year history of the Earth biosphere. You know what the result was? 10 to the negative 33rd power. Yeah, to put that into perspective for your congregation, that fraction is mathematically equivalent to 0. Unguided random search simply cannot navigate the molecular search space to build complex life. It's a mathematical impossibility. So, since unguided evolution is mathematically impossible, how do we reconcile the scientific data we do have with the biblical requirement of a historical founding human pair? Well, this explainer points us to William Lane Craig's landmark integration. It's brilliant because it provides a model that is both scientifically literate and incredibly robust theologically. To grasp Craig's model, we first have to understand how he classifies the literary genre of Genesis 1 through 11. He uses the term mytho-history. Now, what does that mean? It means the text uses figurative, highly symbolic ancient Near Eastern language, like a walking serpent or a magical tree of life, to anchor primordial truths and actual historical people. This is exactly why the biblical genealogies can seamlessly transition from a historical Adam right into undisputed historical figures like Abraham. When anthropologists are looking for this historical Adam in the paleoanthropological record, they use very specific behavioral markers to identify true personhood.
They're looking for abstract thinking, symbolic expression like cave art, planning depth for creating complex tools, and structured domestic spaces. And interestingly enough, the data shows that Neanderthals and Denisovans possessed all of these cognitive behaviors. They buried their dead, they created art, they wore jewelry. By all archaeological markers, they were genuinely human.
Because both branches, Neanderthals and modern Homo sapiens, exhibited true humanity, Craig's historical ancestry model suggests the Imago Dei must have actually originated in their last common ancestor. Crank identifies this common ancestor as Homo heidelbergensis, a species living roughly 750,000 to 1 million years ago. According to this model, God selected a founding pair of Homo heidelbergensis and performed a miraculous twofold act. First, a biological renovation. Think of it as a divinely directed cognitive upgrade preparing their physical brains for higher capacities. Second, a spiritual renovation. This was the direct creation and infusion of a rational human soul. This twofold act elevated them to the level of the Imago Dei. They became the historical Adam and Eve, the true genealogical ancestors of all subsequent human beings.
Moving on to Section 3, the pulpit, pastoral care application. Now, let's shift our explainer from the head to the heart. Because navigating human origins isn't just about winning a debate over fossil lineages in the academy, is it? It's deeply, deeply pastoral. Consider this real-world pastoral scenario. Picture a college student sitting across from you in your office, and they are deeply unsettled. They've just been told by a brilliant biology professor that they are nothing more than a biological machine with no inherent value, no ultimate purpose, and absolutely no life beyond the grave. Just an accidental byproduct of blind natural forces. The existential despair caused by modern secular materialism is heavy, and it is very real. We have to be equipped to meet them right there in that pain.
So here is your pastoral strategy blueprint. First things first, lower the temperature. Reassure that student that intellectual honesty and biblical faith can and do harmonize beautifully. Second, expose the metaphysical hijacking. Show them exactly how their professor smuggled a philosophy, materialistic atheism, into the biological data. Genetic similarities don't come with a literal scientific tag that says, there is no God. Finally, contrast that bleak materialism with the breathtaking dignity of the Imago Dei. Show them how the biblical narrative actually makes the most sense of their deep, undeniable longing for purpose. As leaders, we have to constantly remind our people of a fundamental truth. Naturalism says we're just survival machines propagating DNA and that our biggest problem is just a lack of education. But the biblical view recognizes we are eternal souls, damaged by rebellion, yet meticulously designed for divine fellowship. Our deepest problem isn't a lack of education, it's spiritual rebellion. And that requires the restorative, dignifying work of a creator. Grasping this profound reality should absolutely inspire us to love Christ more deeply and worship Him more fully in our everyday lives.
I want to give you this powerful homiletical hook to use in your ministries. Ready? You are not an accident of nature dressed up in a suit. You are a masterpiece of heaven, sculpted from the dust but breathed into by the living God. Your biology might explain your physical frame, but only your Creator can explain your infinite value. So as you prepare your sermons and your Sunday school lessons this week, ask yourself, which narrative will you let take root? Will you allow materialistic philosophy to dictate your congregation's worth? Or will you equip them with the breathtaking, mathematically sound, and historically anchored truth of the Imago Dei? Preach it aggressively, preach it warmly, and watch it absolutely transform how your congregation sees their Creator.